I would like to invite Christian and Ben.
Ooh, pride.
So now let's get started. Today, I have a huge privilege to be joined by the two industry leaders that are shaping the future of digital commerce together with every single one of us. So first, we have Christian Knauf, e-commerce lead at a company called Telecom. And Christian's team is leading some really interesting transformations into the digital commerce world by helping all of us, and you'll hear more about this, bringing all of those not digital commerce orders and payments and transactions into the digital commerce world. And also Ben Thirlwell, head of SaaS platforms EMEA at Stripe, where obviously you all know Stripe and all of the innovation that they are doing in the digital commerce world, specifically around digital payments. So now let's explore together how those innovations in the digital commerce world are actually shaping the future of commerce. So to get started, I wanted to ask you both, what do you think the future of digital commerce is going to look like? What are the trends that everybody should be looking into to understand where this industry is going? And Ben, I would like to start with you first.
Thank you, Elena. So I think from our perspective, and as you would appreciate, we're very, very focused around the payment experience. There are three main areas that we really see changing dramatically. The first is, and you saw that beautiful video that obviously we're very excited about in terms of our partnership with Spryker, but it's really looking to revolutionize and optimize that payment experience for the customer. So I think that's the first change that we're seeing, and a lot of the innovation that you'll see through the course of today is designed to make that a far better experience for the end customer. And in doing that, there's a real desire to be very, very performant at the point of conversion. So some of the work that we're doing there is leading to sort of improvements in about the 30% range from a performance perspective at the point of conversion. And back to sort of Boris's theme about doing more with less, we see that as a real value lever to drive growth for you and your customers. I think the other two trends are really around many more marketplaces and platforms looking to embed payments into their customer journeys and monetize that process. So that I think is a growth lever that probably didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago, but now is super relevant. And then lastly, as I think we saw in Boris's piece as well, a real focus around unified commerce. So trying to get a very, very consistent experience, whether that shopper is going to be transacting online or in person.
Christian, what do you think? What are the other trends that you feel like it's important for us to know?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Elena. Interestingly, I didn't sync prior to this with Ben according to the topic and also with Boris or with you, but my overall arc will basically the same. So to get more specific, when you go along with Gartner and you will boil it down to the e-commerce relevant and specific topics, you get some main themes. Optimizing your margins, sinking your costs, optimizing the overall user experience. That's for sure. I think that's an absolute no-brainer on the one side. And also getting more out of your workforce, because workforce getting more expensive, isn't available anymore, and so on. But what are the technologies to cover this up and to enhance everything and that you get in an e-commerce sphere a little bit more forward in this direction? Cloud first. Heavily emphasizing and using the clouds of the big hyperscalers, so the AWS, the Azure cloud, the Google cloud. You can't really do much wrong with it. That's one point. You get a good support and service level. You get support from areas out of the world where the workforce costs are lower. That's a point as well. You get a huge tool set that you can use and implement into your own e-commerce strategy and your environment as well. Using AI tools, and I will really not oversell the topic AI today, but to underline the tool in AI tool. That's important for me because I think 100,000 years ago, the Neanderthaler doesn't emphasize on the crystalline structure of the flintstone. So why should you bother with what exact natural language model is used inside the tool? If the tool gets the job done, it's totally okay if it is available. No? That's a point. And last but not least, optimizing and streamlining all the processes around e-commerce.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's absolutely lots of different trends that we're seeing, hearing from the AI, unified commerce, the beautiful user experience, which is absolutely important. But there's always as many as opportunities, also challenges, and how to actually adopt those new technologies and how to stay competitive and relevant with those new trends. So from your perspective, what are the actual tangible things that every single customer can do to be prepared for those changes? So Christian, let's start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the main point or the main problem is that there's an overwhelming complexity out there. And who has to handle it? To make a small anecdotal story out of the last months from my own team, I have, besides the normal project teams, we have also some application management team that does e-commerce application management on the AWS. And for some special cases, we are using open source. Besides, Spiker has licensing background topics. But the point is, we had the idea to use this open source software, put it into the cloud, put it on some container, we have the image ready, and then it can scale up, ready to use, get fast, rich online. Huh? That's the point. So from a conceptual point of view, quite easy. Shouldn't only take some hours for a system engineer. But at the end, it takes weeks, take months, it's still ongoing. And where's the problem, or where the problem? We don't know exactly, because the complexity in the substructures we're enhancing with every problem we solved, new problems arises. And the problem was I had to funnel in more and more resources. I have to funnel in experts for cloud infrastructure and code on cloud. I have to funnel in specialists for building builds and deployments. I have to funnel in more specialists for the application itself and to enhance the application that is up and running. And the problem is, as soon as AWS is changing something, or the producer, it will stop working, or is working not anymore. And that's a really problem. And from our side, as an implementation partner, when we have these problems, the problems on your side with smaller IT departments must be much way higher, because you are normally not doing this every day like we do. So what I want to point out is more or less what you can do is outsourcing the complexity and the problems to your implementation partner, to your hosting partner, as well as to the product partners, also the product companies, to Spryker, to the SaaS and PaaS products itself. You pay your fee, and they have to solve the problem with Fargate, with EC2, and so on. So don't buffer with it. Focus on your main business.
Yeah, absolutely, that's a great insight. Absolutely, it's important to hand over your future into the hands of experts, implementation partners, choosing the right vendor, and so on. Ben, from your point of view, so what are the things that can be done to help customers prepare?
Yeah. Is that mic working? I think the last one wasn't. Yeah, okay, it appears to be. So yeah, I think as Christian was just saying, that theme of complexity is super relevant from the role that we play in the commerce journey. So the complexity from the work we do really kind of presents itself in three ways. The first is that customer payment preferences just continue to evolve. I'm sure if you all think back 10 years ago, you maybe had one or two ways of paying, whereas today there's a proliferation of various ways in which, as a consumer, you can pay for your pay for goods, whether it be Apple Pay. You might use a buy now, pay later solution. Here in Germany, you may pay with Girocard by way of example. So managing the process so that you present the right option for payment at checkout is really critical. So about 85% of cart abandonment happens as a result of the consumer not having their preferred payment method presented to them at the point of checkout. So that's really important, and I'll explain what we're doing there in a minute. The other piece is managing payments from a regulatory perspective is also very complex. So the regulatory landscape continues to move, and therefore, partnering with, say, a PSP, like ourselves, is one way to abstract a lot of that regulatory complexity away from you. And there's obviously a cost to that regulatory complexity that, as we spoke about earlier, is probably something, if it's not your core business, it is likely to be sort of difficult to manage. And there's also, from a kind of technology architecture perspective, there's a cost to sort of maintain and build payments, build and maintain your payments architecture. So, we've developed a sort of low, no-code integration approach that makes it really easy to be able to plug in and use the payment architecture along with Spryker. So we're really, really excited about that. And what that looks like is our optimized checkout suite enables you to have access to well over 100 local payment methods in a range of geographies around the world. So therefore, in terms of that time to first transaction, we've innovated to enable you and your customers to be able to transact really, really quickly.
That's really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. And actually, as a segue to my next question, so Ben, I know that obviously Stripe has always been at the forefront of revolutionizing digital payments, and you're well known for that. So can you share with us some of the best practices that Stripe is seeing and recommending their customers on how to prepare and stay relevant in this highly competitive market right now?
Yeah, sure. I think as I touched on there, we're sort of payment nerds. So the video you saw, we spend our whole life kind of looking at that kind of stuff and figuring out how we might make it a bit better. And for us, personalization is really about presenting a kind of a relevant and appropriate method of payment at the point of checkout. So our optimized checkout suite, and some of you may have used it either consciously or unconsciously, depending on what you buy and where, is designed to present your preferred method of payment at the point of checkout so that you're able to experience a one-click checkout, and that can usually take place in and around sort of 5 or 6 seconds. So we're looking to make that sort of very sort of traditionally functional process really, really elegant. I think as the other piece that I spoke about that we feel really, really passionate about is facilitating consumer choice again at the point of checkout. So buy now, pay later solutions are significantly more common, and particularly in the sort of 25 to late 40s age bracket. They account, I think, for about 30-40% of digital commerce transactions these days. And those are new transactions. So that's not cannibalizing your existing customers. They will be new customers that are looking to pay in different ways. And as Boris mentioned, now that sadly money isn't free anymore, then they're starting to become more and more prevalent in that sort of sub €1,000 AOV. So beyond that, I think some of the other forms of payment that are really relevant here would be PayPal, SEPA, DD, and then particularly in a B2B context, we're partnering with buy now, pay laters like Billy and Mondu. So hopefully you therefore have a really, really broad range of payment solutions for your customers. And then again, at that point of checkout, we're able to execute the payment. And then that's a real key lever from a customer loyalty perspective over time.
Those are, first of all, amazing insights. However, what is really interesting about digital commerce and commerce space in general, as when you look at the stats, around 80% of commerce is still happening in the offline world. And while there are so many new innovations that Ben just shared when it comes to personalizing and making sure that you actually see the insights and the payment options that you want, for those 80% of people who are still transacting offline, that is not relevant. And Christian, I've heard that you at Telecom are working on some interesting innovations in that area on how to help those customers that are still transacting offline to make their steps towards the online digital commerce. So can you share more?
Sure, absolutely. I will make a really extreme example for the next seconds, but bear with me and try to adapt this to your specific industries. So a state administration like for Berlin or for Bavaria, what do you think, how many suppliers they have? Thousands, over thousands. And the point is the state has to buy everything because the state produces nothing, at least in Germany. So they have to buy paper, printer paper, toilet paper, duty cars, whatever you can imagine. They have to buy somewhere, somehow. And the point is, besides the bigger contracts where things are delivered on a more regular manner, most of the suppliers get their orders via email attachment, via fax, still 78%, or the physical post. Why is this? Because the administration budget to implement or provide some really good merchant platform to do this is not existent. And if the administration becomes on the lower levels or on a city with at least 100,000 people or something like this, they have no budget at all to do this or to provide the supplier any relevant connectivity on the one side. And on the other side, so you as a supplier, as a producer of printer paper, for example, you get an order once per month for 20 euros, for 40 euros. So it's not relevant for you to build explicit for this state administration some kind of special API, or you don't provide them a special punch-out user with special parameter that they need in any regards to handle it in their procurement system. So that's the problem. So we have the customer on the one side that will order a lot of things, and but he won't use your normal e-commerce workflow. That's a point. It's a big point here in Germany still. But what if? What if we had a tool, built of AI for sure, a lot of AI inside, but the point is it's a tool that can take in all these orders, OCR scan, PDF, email, image, PNG, doesn't matter, and then make that point that normally the customer service does. Read it, identify all data into the document, also the order data, the line item price, quantity, the delivery data, street number, house, name, SKU, MPN, and so on, everything that is normally inside the document, and then transform it into a regular purchase order. Would this be great? Absolutely, and it works. And the point is, besides that, small plus point, we are using natural language. So it's quite difficult, but an XML or a CXML purchase order is built of artificial language. It also can read this. So it doesn't really matter if you have an OCR scan or a picture of an order, or you put an iDoc inside, or an CXML purchase order. It can walk through all formats. So put e-commerce tokens on it and then send it to Spryker, for example. Why to Spryker? Why should the SEMA Speed, so it's the name of the tool, why should the SEMA Speed transfer the orders to an e-commerce platform and not directly into the procurement system or the ERP? Quite easy. The Spryker shop or the e-commerce platform is available 24/7. So that's good. It's still available. It's exposed to the internet. So you have not the security risk to expose your ERP system to the internet to make it available for the suppliers. And you have the order inside your e-commerce platform. So you can handle it like an e-commerce order. You can do your order confirmation mail. You can do the payment, maybe. You can do the shipping information. You can do the order update, everything. And in some shiny future, maybe, if when the administration will log into the Spryker shop, it can watch its own order history as well, for example.
That is actually really interesting. Christian just mentioned fax. I realized that I actually never use fax in my life ever. So having a tool like this would definitely simplify my life if I was one of the people who are actually managing the orders. And I don't know about you guys, but hopefully you would love that as well. Well, we have discussed how payments can be done, obviously, digitally, and there are so many different things that are available right now to all of us in the digital commerce world, and how there is still a lot of opportunity in the offline world. But let's talk about how can we actually converge and merge those two streams without disrupting what customers are doing right now, because obviously that's probably one of the reasons why customers are so slow to adopt those new technologies, because they don't want to disrupt what they are doing already. So Bev, let's start with you. Are there any ideas that you have for how to help the customers get both, like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, sure. Before I do, I'm very happy to admit that I do remember faxes, and I did use on those a little bit younger, as my grey hair will attest. So
That can be a label of "Ask me about fax."
Yeah, exactly. So I think what was it from a payment perspective? I think in the keynote, omnichannel. I think I saw first emerge in like 2019 as a theme. It's taken a little longer from a payments perspective for it to be kind of real. And certainly here in Germany, about 80% of all German commerce still happens in person or in real life. So I think in that sense, obviously, many of the people in this room will be very kind of e-commerce focused. So I think the collective challenge is trying to bring both of those experiences together for the consumer so that it feels very consistent. And there's a reason for doing that is that we see those sort of platforms, marketplaces, and merchants that are doing that successfully are typically seeing something in the region of a sort of 20% increase in revenue, where they have a really smooth omnichannel experience for their customers. So it's not just conceptually a nice thing to do; it's absolutely revenue generating. So I think from our perspective, Stripe is probably synonymous with e-commerce, but then we have a suite of what we would sort of term terminal products to allow you to accept payments in person. The team can talk to you about that a little bit later today. But I think from our perspective, there's the customer experience piece. But what's really cool is you're then able to kind of collect data across, kind of all interactions from a payment perspective with your customer. And then many of our merchants and our platforms and marketplaces that are doing that are then successfully applying that data into thinking about, how do they recommend offers and how do they start to sort of develop a more complete picture of how their customers behave through the transaction process and at checkout, and that insight's driving, more innovation, but also unlocking more revenue and growth for them.
Cool. That's really interesting. Christian, what about you? Are there any ideas that come to your mind?
Yeah, as I mentioned, you have the offline orders on the one side, you have the unstructured orders on the other side, and what I want to emphasize at this point is really don't put more complexity into it. Don't do sub-processes that are all running parallel. Also take a really good look and focused look, and where do you inject the orders and where do you do the payment at all. That everything goes nicely and streamlined into the ERP system. That's important.
Cool. Yes, that's really interesting. And I'm sure that that's a lot of opportunity, especially for our customers, the ones doing B2B, those global companies that existed for a long time with those existing processes that are yet to be digitized. So now, finally, looking ahead, what do you think is going to be the next wave of innovation in digital commerce? Christian, let's start with you.
Okay. That's an interesting question. When you take a look on the Gartner hype cycle, you have really a bunch of technologies. But as I mentioned, I think with shrinking budgets, it's not so much the focus on the technology that is far away or is at the beginning of the hype cycle, or is more or less only some fairy tale buzzword somewhere and somehow. The point is really using technologies that are now available with the feature set that you need now. Not on a roadmap in 6 months. Also don't transfer or change to a producer or a product only because on their roadmap is a feature that appears magically in 12 months and then will fix all your business problems. That's not how it works.
Yeah, so we heard that over and over, value is what's more important than the features and functions that are not yet even adopted. Ben, what do you think is going to happen next?
I think a broad theme that we see, probably not just from a payments perspective, but very true across kind of all aspects of e-commerce, is those that are winning are those that are able to kind of identify and then really quickly adapt to customer preferences. So I talked a little bit earlier about like payment preferences being a good example, and the ability to be agile in response to kind of new products that are launched or new dynamics in the industry, I think is really, really important. And what we see that then doing is driving an increase in kind of SaaS, sort of e-commerce SaaS providers or marketplace providers. So I think McKinsey estimate that about 35% of all commerce will sort of be transacted through a marketplace or a platform by late 2025, early 2026. So I think that trend is something that we can see continuing to gather pace, and in many ways Europe's now starting to catch up with the US, which is really exciting for everybody here.
Cool. So we're actually coming closer to the end of this panel, and we have heard so many interesting insights. So we know that there is still a huge opportunity for all of us in the world of digital commerce. There are roughly still 80% of transactions that are still yet to be digitized. When you do that, though, you absolutely importantly need to actually provide the seamless experience for your customers, because it's important for them not to abandon what you're trying to offer them because the experience is not seamless. And there are so many different trends that are yet to come, but most importantly, every single one of you and every single one of us providing technology are focusing right now on real, tangible value, because we know that it's important for all of us to drive that for you so that we can win together. Ben, Christian, thank you so much for your insightful conversations. That was absolutely amazing. And all of us are going to be available throughout this day for more in-depth conversations about bringing offline orders into online, about checkout experiences and so on. Also, we can talk about fax and how to use it. I will definitely ask that question as well. And believe it or not, we actually made it to the time before 11. So now we actually have a time for the coffee break. The alarm is still going to be there at 11 a.m., but we will all enjoy drinking coffee. Thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your conference.